Hello. Good afternoon. I'm here in Chicago, just right outside of Chicago. I'm honored to be on the show at ABG Talk. So we're going to get right to it. They asked me to answer a couple of things that they want me to talk about regarding jazz and my involvement in jazz as me as a composer and a musician. So we'll try to get right to it. So I know that we only have a limited amount of time. So. First things first, I want to thank again ABG and Gail and all the organizations, along with my management people and my record company, ABG. So, first of all, I'm Michael Mason. I'm well known as basically a jazz flutist and composer. So I've created, quite a few compact discs and albums over the years. I've been probably doing this for should get this off of there. Probably doing this for at least, I've been playing flute for about 42 years. 42 years. Um, so what we're talking about here is, I guess, one of the things I want to do is how did I get involved in jazz? Well, I did not start out as a jazz musician. I was, as you can tell by looking at me, I'm kind of up there in years. In fact, I'll be 69, and but I've been doing this music for 42 years, which is quite a while. The flute was an accident, just so you understand how this all happened with me. I was a guitarist at the time. I grew up through the 60s and 70s. My background is through that era of music, which was an incredible time, through the whole Woodstock thing and everything else. And at the time, I was playing in some folk rock type groups, and then I ended up in these big progressive rock groups that had played out in different places, Canterbury and Hawkwind and all these things. So I was influenced as a guitarist. One day, my apartment was stolen, broken into, and what happened was my guitars were stolen. And when I went to replace the guitars up in South Post, which is a music store up in Evanston, way north of Chicago. They said, "Hey, we're going to replace your guitars." I had a very minimal insurance policy. I had some really nice folk guitars. But anyways, make a long story short, Billy up there said, "Hey, Mike, while you're waiting, you want to take this flute, mess around with it?" And I said, "Sure, I'll take it home." And I started messing around. And that's how I ended up basically being a jazz flutist. And I bastardized the instrument for quite a few years. And I'm trying to move along here real quick because I know we don't have a lot of time. But through that time, I learned how to play a lot of different things off of records and recordings, learned a lot from some street musicians and things I did in the city. And then I was finally accepted. I went to audition at a local conservatory here, and I just happened to luck out. And the first chair flutist of the Lyric Opera in Chicago decided to take me on as a student, and that's how I learned how to play the instrument properly. Before that, I was bastardizing the instrument and inventing things and doing everything like I said. So my mentors in regards to, who influenced me, well, it was Rahsaan Roland Kirk, those in regards to the flute now. And I had a lot of other different people. Rahsaan was great. Coltrane was obviously a big one. And then, Herbie Mann, anything that would involve the flute, because I started getting really intrigued with the flute. So that's how I ended up learning the instrument. But a lot of years of study. Finally ended up at the Conservatory of Music because I was good enough by then maybe to get, go into formal training. So I ended up doing that, but still playing progressive groups, still playing clubs in the city of Chicago. So I learned a lot coming from the streets. A lot of stuff from the streets and jazz players that were on the streets and everything else, because I did a lot of performances progressively heading into the jazz realms of music from the progressive rock areas of music. So that's how this all ended up. So So how can I talk to you about this in regards to first of all, any journey you take, to me, is a happenstance experience. In other words, you need to study. You need to learn your chops, practice your instrument. But a lot of things happen by chance, and it's very strange how things happen. Um, so in this progression of accidents is how I find myself today of where I'm at. So learning everything took a long time, and I just kept playing every day and practicing every day and just innovating, copying people, as well as getting my own sound. So getting my own sound took several years. This just doesn't happen overnight. Because you do, anybody that does anything, as far as I'm concerned, especially in music or any artistic endeavor, you have to find your own voice, and sometimes it's a journey to find that voice, and that's what I went through. I've got a second career, or my first career was another accident that happened. I was a jazz musician in the streets of Chicago and the clubs and stuff, and I was really it was a tough time in the 70s and 60s and stuff. But I happened to run across a couple of buddies in the Chicago Fire Department that turned me on to firefighting. I also am a firefighter. I have been a firefighter for 37 years, a flutist for 42 years. But I was able to make a living to supplement, my ability to stay in the music business. And it has never left me. I'm retired now from the fire service for quite a few years, but so just remember, there's no such thing as a dead end street, right? What you have may bring you to a detour, and then you can continue on. But if you're going to be an artist or you're going to be a practicing musician, just keep practicing. That's all I can say. So some of the other things I wanted me to bring up is, what are the albums that I'm dealing with now? In other words, these recent projects that I'm working on. These projects, you have to understand, I'm probably on my ninth. I think it's the ninth album that has been put out. Now, I took a 10-year hiatus. I took off 10 years because I got disenchanted with the jazz things that were going on and the music that I was developing at the time. The label I was with was very supportive, but I just wanted time off, to just sit back in my life, take a reflection, compose. I compose a lot of different types of music all the time. And I wasn't ready to go back out. I just needed a change. And so everything started drifting towards these world sounds, incorporating the uniqueness of the jazz idioms into the world music, which then brought me almost full circle around to the utilization of patterns and basic folklore and different things like that, which I was intrigued with. So hey babe, how you doing? I'm on the air. It's okay. It's my wife. She just walked through the door.
Hey, how you doing?
Want to say hi?
We're
hi. Good. Anyways, so that's how this kind of all came about. So the immediate projects are the album that came out of, I believe it was last year, was Human Revolution, which is a jazz world music type of album, as long as the rest of this stuff. Like I said, I took out this 10 years off, evaluated how I wanted to approach compositions and composing music. And I took the elements of jazz music and started simplifying things and getting into more of a modal thing with use of percussion instruments and natural sounds and things like that. So, which then led to these compositions you're hearing now on the internet and the streaming network. So, Transcendence is another title of the latest album that came out, and we're in the process now of putting out a couple of more. And I think they're called Impermanence is the title of one album, Inner Beings another. But you can tell these are all pieces, a lot of spiritual development musically as well. So that's what we're talking about here. So they also asked me to, how did we cope through the pandemic? We, as musicians here, we do a lot of work within our studio. I'm in my home studio right now. I have, all these crazy drums, Those are hang drums, and the hang drums is what led me to a different modality in music. The hang drum, better known as hang or hand pans, I started investing in them because I was investigating the modalities of music versus the jazz idioms of music, and I was able to cross-reference the two and creating some pretty unique compositions, which I feel to me are very unique, and they set a totally new tonal balance, and a very well, I can make it anything. I can make it very hard progressively. I can make it very hard percussion wise. I can lighten it up. I can bring it in. I can bring it out. But one thing we do rely on is improvisation. So the other idea behind improvisation is to make sure, that you practice your instrument. So in order to be free in your musical playing, and because this is another area they wanted me to go into, is what would I advise students or people that are seeking out, playing their instrument and everything else. There's nothing, you can't get around it without having a facility of your instruments, like anything else, just like in firefighting. We must train every day. We must know, our subject matter that we're dealing with. So again, just pick your instrument up every day if you can, and practice. Get your formal training down. I mean, for sure, there's nothing that I could not do unless I understood some simple musical theory concepts like, majors and minors, circle of fifths, all those things that go into everything, scale work, all this has to be practiced in order for you to maintain. I mean, every day I'm up playing. I drive my wife and my whole family nuts for years, constantly practicing. So in order for me to reveal my competencies on flute, a lot of people say I've got a kind of a unique flute sound, but that was only done after many good teachers. Many good teachers. Some of my teachers were incredible. Joseph Zero for the lyric. I had Donald Peck of the Chicago Symphony. I had James Newton, one of the greatest jazz flute players of all time, that I had a chance to sit with and do master work with, and master classes and things like that. So, pick great teachers, and then pursue your own voice, like I've always said before. So make sure that you're doing that. So those are the things they also wanted me to talk about with you. Remember that everything doesn't come easily. There's some days they're great. Some days sometimes I'll pick up the horn and I'll pick up the flute and I'll go, man, I sound horrible today, but work your way through it and just keep moving on. I have a lot of people that ask me about my compositional ideas and how I arrive at these compositions. Well, first of all, because I come from a jazz I saw rock, progressive rock, jazz, Coltrane, Miles Davis, we went with a lot of chords, moving through those chords to improvise over or whatever it was, not only playing the heads of the pieces, and then the chords started to spread out. It's the best way I can describe it. They spread out. And then we start simplifying things. We wanted more air in it. Like one of the major albums that'll influence you in regards to jazz in order to learn how to play it. First of all, I always say play the blues, just a 12-bar blues, because those are some root factors that happen in jazz as well as the blues. These are some of the areas of history and the roots that we come from in order to do this music. So, and then we switch into this, Charlie Parker, when all the chords were moving fast, giant steps, John. We all had to learn that in school. But after a while, it just got insane trying to run over these chords. We had no, we can improvise because we had the facility, but we were just moving through changes. Now I spread things out. I want to allow my musicians and my soloist people to have their own voice. And the only way to do that sometimes is to spread out that background a little bit so they can improvise and they can do certain things. Again, improvising is the study of your instrument, but it is also the study of your human heart and your human experience in your life. So as you kind of grow older like me, because I'm ancient, there's more experience that you could put into your statements or your phrasing and everything that you're doing, and then listening to a lot of different players and different, albums or CDs, or whatever you listen to. So study, and don't give up. Don't give up. I'm not here for fame or fortune. I do this because I just love to do it. And I just have to have people that are listening to me. And I appreciate all these interviews, everything that I do. We do several of these a year. And whether it's my label, which is ABG, and my good time manager I've been with for years, Bill Batskill, my players that play with me on all my albums, this cannot be done without the support and the brilliance of all these people. These ideas just don't come from me. There's a saying in the fire service, you're only as good as the talent pool below you. And if you even look at it that way, I may be a leader as far as the group is concerned or the musical album, but my talent is below the area that I'm working with. That's where things are feeding me back and forth. So just try to remember that. We have to play together. We have to work with other musicians. Every chance you get that you could sit in somewhere or whatever you want to do to express yourselves, absolutely do it. And this voice will come to you, over time. And the voice, by the way, it'll keep changing. It's because I've changed my musical playing. There was a question that came to me from a guy there was a French journalist that was looking at me. He says, in fact, I wrote it down. He goes, as an artist, do you compare yourself to other artists or other music regarding your playing or your compositions? Well, of course I do. There's no such thing as a true, raw, original idea that came, once in a great while you'll get this. But I have been influenced by so many people that I really believe influenced my music, and it should be that way. Sometimes I'll come up with a composition and I'll get it like maybe it's a bass pattern or something like that, and it comes from another artist. Not that I'm copying them. It's just like going, that sounds interesting. I think I'll turn this into this. But then you'll see on some of my recordings, I'll say tribute to, and it means I'm paying tribute to the artist that provided me the influence, to create another type of composition, maybe in some of the same vein that he was, but it took me somewhere else, so that's very important. A lot of people say, how do I create this music? In other words, when I go into the studio, how do I direct all the players and everything else? It's pretty simple, really. It's not simple. It takes years again of playing your instrument and composing, but I'll put together a sketch. See, I kind of know where everything's going, where it's got to be. But when I come into the studio, I lay out these sketches for the musicians. Most of the time, I got a general idea who the players are going to be, whether they're on hongs, it's a bass pattern, a lot of percussion instruments, because I listen to a lot of music from all over the world. So, and then I'll just give them what I call an inference. It's just an inference. Like, okay, I get my bassist. Gio Lowe is one of my great bassists. I always use all the time. I love him to death. He does a lot of our pre-production work because he's more technically savvy than I am. But and I'll say, hey, this is the kind of bass pattern I'm looking for. We got a groove, we got a click. We got the time signatures kind of worked out a little bit. But I let them take it and run. Let them run with it. Let this thing evolve a little bit. And as it evolves through the players, whether it's, like Gessling on hung drums or percussion, or Jose Natal, all these players I play with. And then if it gets, to the point where we're starting to formulate whatever's starting to happen, even though the musical conceptions came from me, they are still musically donating into the picture. So very democratic type of thing, So I hope that kind of explains, how I do these compositions. Because I tell you, what's really great about improvisation is that new ideas spawn from the original ideas. And all of a sudden you find yourself going somewhere you never thought you would go, just based on the inspiration of someone else's possibly 2 or 3 notes, And then I'll have to go back to the drawing board a little bit, and I'll come back the next day with the players and say we revised this, or it just happens right in the studio, right where it happens. So composing, playing the flute, playing these drums, or these called hong drum. Now the hong drum, as you know, the hand pans are relatively new, like I said before. So they just came out in 2001. So it's relatively a new instrument. These are not like steel drums. These are drums that have the same metal compositions to them, but they are very unique to themselves. The modalities that we create obviously creates a lot of the music, that I'm composing. So I guess hope I'm making sense to you. If not, I apologize, but you can feel free to reach out to me on our website, which is fireflute.com. Another question that's always comes up to me is people have said that your improvisations in the modal musical sculpture are quite unique, and even in live performances, they change. Of course they do. Now, the music we create in the studio, we will present live, but when we present it live, we'll introduce the theme, and then we will expound on that theme. So it will not be exactly what's on any type of recordings. I'm not interested in producing something verbatim every time. There has to be, for us as jazz players and world music players, there has to be room for expression. It'd be like anything. If I came up with a sketch and I just happened a cello player to show up that was a great cellist that I know and happens to be, at the performance or at the studio, come on in, man, can you play over these changes here? And he'll expound on it, or she'll expound on it. So again, got to have command and control of your instrument. That's what's really going to make this happen. And then eventually, spiritually, in your life experiences, you're going to let all this is going to sink in. It'll make sense to you. There are great players. I've had players sitting with me that are 18 years old, and they are phenomenal. Now they have the total expression of living a life? No, but yet they know. They have. It doesn't take a big rocket science to figure this out. All you need to do is look like some artists that are on these great TV shows that you're watching, like what is it? The Voice, American Idol. Not that I granted that's pop music, maybe more than, but look at the talent. I run into jazz players, talent, high school, clinics that I would do. We used to do a lot of clinics. Man, these kids they're just unbelievable. So, anyways, I believe I'm getting close to being out of time. If you want to get back to me, like I said, just I'll be there on www.fireflute.com. And then there's some other people have written into me, and they always say, hey, man, after listening and enjoying many of your compositions, nothing remains the same or predictable. No, it cannot. So it cannot. So thank you for having me on this show. I don't know what else to say. So be good and keep listening to our music. I appreciate your support. Again, please reach out. Again, Human Revolution, Transcendence is out there. The new ones will be out later in the fall, I believe, called Impermanence. And the other one is Interbeing. I believe that comes out at Christmas times. I'm in the show, it says here. I don't know when the show ends because I'm on what we call a 30-minute time frame. So God bless. And what else can I say? Thank you for listening. Love you. Take care of yourselves. And peace to all nations, because we need that. We need a lot.